The echo in the ruins. Lieutenant Cassandra Reeve had been stationed in worse places than Outpost Meridian. The prefabricated human settlement clung to the edge of a massive crater on Helios, a contested moon that both humans and the Luriani Collective claimed as their own. Diplomatic tensions were high, exactly why Command had sent Cassandra, whose file labeled her as having exceptional diplomatic abilities, alongside her combat training. What her file failed to mention was her profound dislike of bureaucracy and her even deeper dislike of the arrogant Luriani warriors who patrolled their side of the settlement like predatory cats. Lieutenant Reeve, Commander Jackson's voice crackled through her comm report to the central hub. Your Luriani counterpart has arrived for the joint patrol. Cassandra sighed, adjusting her exosuit's climate controls. Helios had a nasty habit of swinging between freezing nights and scorching days. Acknowledged. On my way. The central hub was the only structure shared between the two factions, a neutral zone meant to facilitate cooperation. What it actually facilitated was thinly veiled hostility wrapped in diplomatic pleasantries. When Cassandra entered, she immediately spotted her assigned partner. The Luriani stood a head taller than most humans, with coppery skin that held an iridescent quality under the hub's harsh lighting. His armor, deep blue with silver inlays, seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Most striking were the glyphs etched into the breastplate, symbols that reminded Cassandra of the ancient petroglyphs found on Earth's most remote islands. Lieutenant Cassandra Reeve, she introduced herself, extending a hand in the human custom. The Luriani looked at her outstretched hand like she'd offered him a dead rodent. Voron of House Talari, third sentinel of the Luriani Collective. He made no move to reciprocate her gesture. Cassandra withdrew her hand. Charming. I was not selected for my charm, human. I was selected for my ability to ensure my people's interests are protected during this performance of cooperation. Commander Jackson cleared his throat. Your assignment is to survey Sector 7, where our sensors detected unusual energy readings last night. Document everything, collect samples if necessary, but touch nothing without mutual agreement. Don't worry, Commander, Cassandra said. I'll make sure our friend here plays nice. Voron's eyes, solid amber with no visible pupils, narrowed. I am not your friend, Lieutenant. And I do not play at all. The trek to Sector 7 took 3 hours across Helios's broken landscape. Cassandra's boots kicked up plumes of metallic dust with each step, while Voron moved with an infuriating grace that left barely a trace. They hadn't exchanged a word since leaving the hub. Finally, as they approached the massive ridge that marked their destination, Cassandra broke the silence. Have you been stationed here long? Long enough to know that human curiosity often precedes human theft, Voron replied without looking at her. That's rich coming from the species that claimed 3 Terran outposts as ancestral territories last solar cycle. Voron stopped abruptly. Those outposts were built on sacred ground. Ground where our ancestors' memory crystals were buried centuries before your kind learned to leave your atmosphere. So you claim. So our history proves. Cassandra was about to retort when something caught her eye, a faint blue pulse emanating from one of the glyphs on Voron's breastplate. She frowned. Your armor. Voron glanced down, his expression shifting from arrogance to confusion. The glyph, shaped like an interlocking spiral, pulsed once more before fading back to its metallic sheen. It's nothing, he said too quickly. Environmental reaction to the local minerals. Before Cassandra could press further, they crested the ridge and both fell silent at the sight below. What their commanders had labeled as unusual energy readings was a massive structure half buried in the moon's surface. Geometric shapes of impossible precision formed a complex that stretched for at least a kilometer, with a central spire that reached toward the stars. That's not in any of our surveys, Cassandra murmured. Nor ours, Voron admitted, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. They descended carefully, scanners working overtime to analyze the structure's composition. As they approached, Cassandra's scanner began to emit a series of rapid beeps. Unknown alloy, she read from the display. Elements present in the compound don't match anything in our database. Voron wasn't listening. He had moved ahead to what appeared to be an entrance, a triangular opening in the base of the central spire. His hand hovered near the surface, not quite touching. "We should wait for backup," Cassandra called out, but even as the words left her mouth, she felt a strange pull toward the structure. A familiar sensation, like returning to a place she'd been before. "Can you hear it?" Voron asked quietly. Cassandra was about to ask what he meant when she realized that yes, she could hear something, not with her ears but somewhere deeper. A vibration, a hum that resonated in her chest. They approached the entrance together. As Voron stepped closer, the glyph on his armor began to pulse again, stronger this time. And strangely, the control panel on Cassandra's wrist unit responded in kind, its light synchronizing with the rhythm of Voron's armor. "That's not possible," she whispered. Voron's eyes were wide. "Your technology shouldn't respond to Luriani resonance patterns." The triangular entrance suddenly illuminated with the same blue light, and before either could react, it slid open with a sound like a long-held breath finally released. "We should definitely wait for backup," Cassandra said again, with considerably less conviction. "And share this discovery with our superiors before we understand what it is?" Voron countered. "I think not." For once, Cassandra agreed with him. Whatever this was, instinct told her it was too important to turn into another diplomatic bargaining chip. The interior of the structure defied explanation. Corridors that seemed to bend in impossible directions, chambers that expanded beyond what their external dimensions should allow. And everywhere, the same glyphs that adorned Voron's armor. "These are ancient Luriani symbols," Voron said, tracing one etched into a wall. "Sacred patterns passed down through the highest houses." "Then why does my equipment recognize them?" Cassandra countered. She projected a holographic display from her wrist unit, showing the pattern recognition software trying to match the symbols. "It says they're 88% consistent with proto-linguistic patterns found in Earth's oldest archaeological sites." Voron shook his head in denial, but Cassandra could see doubt creeping into his expression. They continued deeper, following corridors that lit up as they approached and darkened after they passed, as if the structure itself was guiding them. They entered a vast circular chamber dominated by a central platform. As they stepped inside, the entire room illuminated, and a three-dimensional projection appeared above the platform, a star map unlike any Cassandra had seen. "That's not our galaxy," she murmured. "No," Voron agreed. "It's far too ancient." As they approached the platform, both Voron's armor and Cassandra's equipment began to resonate more intensely. The star map shifted, zooming in on a specific region where 2 points of light, one copper-hued like Luriani skin, one blue like Earth's oceans, orbited each other. "What is this place?" Cassandra whispered. Before Voron could answer, a panel on the platform slid open, revealing a recess containing two objects, a metallic disc inscribed with the spiral glyph and what appeared to be an ancient data crystal. Voron reached for the disc at the same moment Cassandra reached for the crystal. Their hands brushed, and a surge of energy pulsed through the chamber. The star map expanded, filling the room with light, and suddenly they weren't alone. A figure materialized, translucent, flickering, neither human nor Luriani but somehow both. It spoke in a language Cassandra didn't recognize, yet somehow understood. The paired keys return. The cycle begins anew. The figure dissolved, leaving them in stunned silence. Voron stared at Cassandra, his arrogance replaced by something that might have been fear. "What just happened?" she asked. Voron's gaze dropped to his armor, where the spiral glyph now glowed steadily. "I believe," he said slowly, "we have discovered something that will change everything our people believe about their histories." "You mean?" "That humans and Luriani might share more than just this contested moon." He touched the glyph carefully. "That perhaps we were never meant to be enemies at all." A distant rumble shook the structure, dust falling from crevices in the ancient ceiling. Something had been awakened, something that had slumbered for millennia until they had stumbled upon it. And as another tremor shook the ground beneath them, Cassandra realized their discovery was just the beginning. Awakening the Sentinel. The second tremor was stronger than the first, sending fine particles of dust cascading from the ancient ceiling. Cassandra steadied herself against the platform while Voron's eyes darted to the corridor they had entered through. "We need to leave," he said, all pretense of superiority gone from his voice. Cassandra shook her head, clutching the data crystal she'd retrieved from the platform. "Not until we understand what this means. That hologram called us paired keys. It recognized something in both of us. All the more reason to proceed with caution," Voron countered, but his gaze kept returning to the crystal in her hand and the disk he now held. The spiral glyph on his armor pulsed steadily, synchronized with the lights on Cassandra's wrist unit. Another tremor, violent enough to make them both stumble. "That's not seismic activity," Cassandra said, checking her scanner. "These are mechanical vibrations. Something's activating within the structure." As if in response to her words, the walls of the chamber began to shift. Panels slid apart, revealing hidden corridors that hadn't existed moments before. The star map above them reconfigured, now showing a flashing path leading deeper into the complex. "It's guiding us," Voron observed. "Or leading us into a trap." Their eyes met, mutual distrust momentarily overshadowed by shared curiosity. They both recognized the significance of what they'd found, something that predated their people's recorded histories, something that suggested a connection neither side would readily accept. "I'll go first," Voron finally said. Cassandra arched an eyebrow. "How chivalrous. Practical. My armor offers better protection than your exosuit." They followed the indicated path, moving through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that defied conventional architecture. The deeper they went, the more they noticed that the structure was changing around them, dead systems humming to life, dormant lights flickering on, ancient machinery stirring from millennia of slumber. "Look at these wall panels," Cassandra whispered, running her fingers over intricate carvings that depicted humanoid figures, some clearly Luriani with their distinctive height and builds, others unmistakably human. "They're working together, building something." Voron studied the images with evident discomfort. "These contradict every historical text in our archives. The collective teaches that we evolved separately, that first contact with humans was merely decades ago." "Same with Earth's records," Cassandra admitted. "Yet here we are, carved into walls predating both our civilizations." The passage opened into a cavernous hangar, so vast that their lights couldn't illuminate the ceiling. But it wasn't the size that left them speechless, it was what occupied the center of the space. A colossal figure stood silent sentinel, a mechanized form that combined sleek, flowing lines reminiscent of Luriani design with the pragmatic reinforcement characteristic of human engineering. It towered at least 20 meters high, humanoid but not human, with a cockpit visible in what would be its chest. "A war machine?" Cassandra asked, voice hushed. Voron shook his head slowly. "A guardian. Look at the positioning, it's stationed to defend, not attack." They approached cautiously. As they drew closer, they saw that the sentinel's surface was covered in the same glyphs that adorned Voron's armor, interspersed with patterns matching those in Earth's oldest archaeological sites. The spiral glyph on Voron's breastplate now pulsed so brightly it cast shadows. Cassandra's wrist unit responded in kind, the interface flickering with symbols she'd never programmed into it. "What happens if we activate it?" she asked. Voron gave her a sharp look. "We're not going to activate it. I'm not suggesting we climb in and take it for a joyride. But this entire facility is waking up because of us. Because of what we carry." She held up the crystal. "We're already part of whatever this is." Before Voron could respond, a new sound reached them, the distinctive whine of engines, far too close. "Ships," Voron said, head tilted. "Not Luriani design." Cassandra accessed her scanner's long-range functions. "Not human either." I'm reading at least 3 vessels landing near the entrance we used. A voice echoed through the hangar, amplified by the structure itself. Sentinels of old, we honor your awakening. They turned to see a group enter the hangar, figures in sleek black armor unlike either human or Luriani design. Their leader stepped forward, helmet retracting to reveal features that blended characteristics of both species. I am Director Niven of the Convergence, the leader announced. We've awaited this moment for centuries. Voron's posture shifted to combat readiness. The Convergence is a myth. A cult. Not a cult, Niven corrected. Custodians. While your civilizations forgot their shared origins, we remembered. We preserved the knowledge that humans and Luriani once stood as one people before the Great Divergence. Cassandra glanced at Voron, seeing her own skepticism mirrored in his expression. If that's true, why keep it secret? Because neither side was ready to remember. The war that separated your ancestors also destroyed much of what they had built together. Including sentinels like this one. Niven gestured to the towering machine. But the architects left failsafes, genetic markers passed down through specific bloodlines that would one day resonate with the old technology. Bloodlines like ours, Voron said, not a question. The spiral of return, Niven confirmed, pointing to the glyph on Voron's armor. You, Third Sentinel Voron, carry the Luriani half of the key. And you, Lieutenant Reeve, carry the human half. Together, you can restore what was lost. Cassandra's mind raced, piecing together the implications. That's why my equipment responds to his armor. Some kind of genetic recognition. Precisely. The technology doesn't distinguish between your peoples, it was built when you were one species. A member of Niven's group stepped forward, weapon raised. Director, we don't have time for history lessons. The convergence point is aligning. We need them to activate the Sentinel now. Niven's expression hardened. Lower your weapon, Theron. They must choose willingly. Choose what, exactly? Voron demanded. To fulfill your purpose. To become the bridge between your peoples once more. Cassandra moved closer to Voron, keeping her voice low. I don't trust them. This is too convenient. For once, we agree, Voron murmured back. But the technology is responding to us. What they're saying aligns with what we've seen. The standoff was interrupted by another tremor, this one powerful enough to dislodge debris from above. Emergency lights activated throughout the hangar, bathing everything in pulsing crimson. The facility's defense systems are engaging, Niven warned. Without proper activation, they'll perceive all present as threats. As if to confirm his words, smaller mechanized units began to emerge from recesses in the walls, ancient security drones awakening to protect the complex. Cassandra caught Voron's gaze. Despite their differences, despite the history of conflict between their peoples, she saw the same realization in his eyes that she felt in her gut, whatever the truth was, it lay with the Sentinel, not with Niven's convergence. Without warning, Theron fired his weapon at Voron. The Luriani dodged, but not fast enough to avoid a glancing hit that left a scorched crack across his armor, directly through the spiral glyph. No! Niven shouted, but it was too late. The damaged glyph sparked, energy arcing between it and Cassandra's wrist unit. Pain shot through her arm as her unit overloaded, the crystal in her hand pulsing with the same rhythm. The Sentinel's eyes illuminated, its massive form straightening from its dormant stance. The hangar's floor split open beneath it, revealing a complex mechanism that began to raise the ancient Guardian onto a launch platform. It's activating, Niven breathed. But without proper synchronization. Security drones converged on the Convergence members, forcing them back toward the entrance. Cassandra grabbed Voron's arm, pulling him toward the rising Sentinel. Whatever's happening, I don't think we want it falling into their hands, she shouted over the growing mechanical roar. Voron nodded grimly, clutching his damaged armor. The access port, there. They sprinted toward a maintenance ladder that ascended to the Sentinel's cockpit level. As they climbed, Cassandra felt the crystal in her pocket growing warmer, responding to their proximity to the ancient machine. They reached the cockpit as the platform locked into its fully extended position. The Sentinel systems hummed with awakening power, displays illuminating with the same glyphs they'd seen throughout the complex. "What now?" Cassandra asked, breathing hard. Voren examined the cockpit's configuration, 2 pilot positions, each designed for a different physiology. One suited to Luriani dimensions, one to human. "It requires both of us," he said. Just as the hologram indicated, paired keys. Below them, chaos unfolded as Niven's group battled the security drones. Some had broken free and were heading toward the platform. "We don't have a choice," Cassandra decided. She placed the crystal into a receptacle by the human pilot position. It fit perfectly, locking into place with a satisfying click. Voren hesitated, then removed his damaged breastplate. The armor itself is the key, he realized, fitting it into a corresponding slot in the Luriani station. As both keys engaged, the cockpit sealed around them. Displays flickered to life, and a voice, the same one from the hologram, echoed through the chamber. Genetic verification confirmed. Resonance patterns aligned. Sentinel unit harmony online. Knowledge flooded into Cassandra's mind, not learning but remembering, as if accessing memories she'd never known she had. Beside her, Voren gasped, experiencing the same phenomenon. "We were one people," he whispered, eyes wide with the revelation. "Separated by war, by choice, by time, but always meant to find our way back. Not to become one again," Cassandra added, understanding flowing through her, "but to stand together despite our differences." The Sentinel moved with their thoughts, systems responding to their combined consciousness. Through its sensors, they saw the truth of the facility, not just a hangar but a beacon, one of many scattered across the galaxy, waiting for the descendants of the original pilots to return. "The Convergence wants to control all the Sentinels," Voren said, accessing the Sentinels' historical databases. "To force reunification between our peoples." Cassandra nodded. "But that was never the purpose. The Sentinels were built to protect both branches of humanity as they evolved separately, not to force them back together." Below them, Niven shouted up at the cockpit. "You must bring the knowledge back to your people. The time for separation is over." But both pilots understood now. Integration would come in its own time, if ever. The Sentinel hadn't awakened to erase their differences but to remind them of their capacity to work together despite them. "Should we tell them?" Cassandra asked. Voren's expression had changed entirely, the arrogance replaced by something humbler, wiser. "Our peoples aren't ready for the full truth. But perhaps they're ready for a beginning." Together, they guided the Sentinel toward the surface, toward the divided outpost where humans and Luriani maintained their uneasy peace. What they carried wasn't just an ancient machine but a shared history neither side had been prepared to accept, until now. As they emerged into Helios's harsh daylight, communications from both settlements flooded their systems. Demands for explanation, threats, confusion. Cassandra opened a channel to all frequencies. "This is Lieutenant Cassandra Reeve and 3rd Sentinel Voren of House Talari. We have discovered something that belongs to both our peoples. Something that proves we have more in common than either side has been willing to admit." Voren continued where she left off, his voice steady. "We offer this not as a weapon, but as a bridge. The first of many truths our peoples must face together." Behind them, the ancient structure continued its awakening, systems that had slumbered for millennia stirring to life once more. And before them lay the uncertain future of two civilizations learning that the lines they had drawn between themselves had always been more permeable than they had believed. The Sentinel, their Sentinel now, stood as testament to what they could accomplish together. Not through forced convergence, but through willing cooperation despite their differences. "Ready?" Cassandra asked, as they prepared to land among the stunned representatives of both peoples. Voren nodded, the damaged spiral on his discarded armor still pulsing in rhythm with her wrist unit. For the first time in my life, Lieutenant Reeve, I believe I am.